today we have on two guest speakers, Eric Amen and Julianne. And I am super excited about this conversation. We're going to be talking about sacred relationships. And this is something that I feel like if we have a relationship, we should be striving for it to be a sacred relationship. So I'm really excited to have our guests on today. They've been married for 7 years, and throughout their time together, their family has grown by 4 children, and they have started multiple businesses, experienced the hardships, the ups and downs, the abundance, dived into the depths of their own personal wounds, and come to a place of feeling safe enough in their relationship to share those things with each other. So I'm really excited to have them on. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. What is sacred relationships? Let's just kick off the conversation.
Cool. Well, I'll jump in and start, and then Julianne, you can jump in. For like you said, we met actually almost 10 years ago. We're coming up on our first date anniversary, and from the very beginning, it was clear, maybe clearer to Julianne than to me, but it was clear to me this was like an unbelievable thing that I had found myself in. And I remember when I asked Julianne out on a date, we went on a picnic, and I had a slack line, and I leveraged the slack line as like, hey, maybe I could show you how to slack line sometime. And that morphed into, do you want to go on a picnic on this day? And I remember, when she said yes, it was like nothing I had ever experienced. It was clear that it was a whole different thing. It was a whole different thing than I'd ever felt before. And so immediately things started moving fast, right? And you said that you had a even different takeaway, right? You knew that more things were going to happen quickly.
Oh yeah, so our first date was about 5 minutes from a family member of mine, and immediately afterwards I went to her house, and my mom happened to be there too, and I was like, if I don't marry this man, I just don't think that that's going to happen for me. So I think I knew a little sooner than he did.
Yeah, for sure. She definitely had the vision in that area, and things started moving really quick. We fell in love deep and fast, and started having babies, and I asked her to marry me, and I was running my own business at the time. I was doing video production, and like relationships and life does, it really provided an opportunity really quickly to let go of a lot of the boy stuff that I had going on in my life, living as a bachelor and like not having a family to having a family fast.
Totally different.
Yeah, totally different. And that was kind of my journey into the healing world too. Julianne had already been working with a Reiki master who's a dear friend and sister of ours. And so I started going to see her, and that led me on the Reiki path and the Qigong path and the breathwork path, all the paths, And I think in that process, it was also my discovery of myself. Like I started doing men's work. And so there was rapid growth. I mean, anytime you have babies and a marriage, it gives you a ripe opportunity right away, right? And then we're both doing our work simultaneously. And I feel like we kind of proceeded that way for a while, because the business was just like, it was taking up a lot of space. We weren't really doing the relationship work other than just surviving, and we were doing well.
Well, and
right?
I think that we had the benefit of having a really, I'll say, passionate beginning. So we had that kind of fire that carried us through to where it took a couple years until we were like, wait, this is starting to feel a little stagnant. What, like, we see that like the business was taking up 70 hours a week or something.
Yeah,
that he was
it
working.
was
And I think at that point we had 3 kids, and 2 of them were under 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I was alone with them most of the time, and he was working alone most of the time. And, we had our nights together, but then sometimes the nights would turn into work conversations, or sometimes they would turn into like, well, I have to send this email, you
Right.
know, and we weren't really having the relationship time that I feel like we really needed. And it wasn't until that point that we're like, oh, that's something we really need.
Yeah. That, and I would actually say it's probably when we hit, there was probably for us a bottom, a bottom moment where it was just clear that it was unsustainable, you
Mhm.
know, and it was kind of what do we want to do? What do we want to do in this point? I remember feeling like this can't go on. I don't even want to live this life. Like as a human, I don't want to do it. This is like
Yeah.
this mediocre. I don't want to go and work in a factory. I don't want to be a construction person. The only way for me is to pursue my purpose, and I also want this woman and I want this family. And so we, at that point, I would say that was the beginning of the work on our relationship, right?
Yeah.
Where it started to shift from a normal relationship into what we would call a sacred relationship. And to put some more words to that, just to bring it in a little bit, for me, I think what that is acknowledging the divine in your partner and in yourself, and understanding that, and in your kids, if you have kids, and understanding that part of the reason they are right here, right now, with their idiosyncrasies and their own past experiences and all the thing that makes them unique is so beautiful and perfect, because it uh, triggers and stimulates and gets in there, right? It gets in there, and it illuminates opportunity that in a normal relationship may lay stagnant. It may lay in the muck, covered up with drinking or with whatever it is that people use to, being busy, right, to cover up the muck. That doesn't exist,
Yeah.
at least not for long, within a sacred relationship. There's just, the fire is burning too strong.
There's not a
Right?
choice.
It's not a choice.
It's the choice is either be completely mundane and, disconnect spiritually from who you are, from who your partner is, and like live the surface level life. But if you're any bit intuitive, if you have any sensitivities to energy, which I feel like more and more people are becoming aware of that within themselves, it's like it's so uncomfortable to live that way that it's like I would rather either be alone or we have to go all in on this, because otherwise we're both going to be miserable. And then, because of that, our family will be miserable. Our children will see, the things that we don't want to show them. We don't want to be that example. So.
Yeah.
So Julianne, what brought you to the point? Like I'm hearing Eric's story of like he was going through his self-discovery process, his welcoming into the inner world of energetics and the world of like self-healing. Did you have to go through that phase to kind of recognize that I want this and I want it for our relationship as well?
Yeah. So for me, our first daughter I had before we were together. She was three when we got together. Um, and like he said, I had been working with an energy practitioner for years at that point. So I kind of, and I feel like it's very common, especially in parents, for as soon as the woman has a child, things change. Like you realize you don't have the space or the tolerance for what you maybe had tolerance for before. So for me, I kind of already gone through that, a chunk of that, let's say. And to watch him going through that sometimes was really, really challenging, because like I could see so much like potential in him, and I could see like the divine aspects of him, and when his actions weren't lining up with that, it was like, what the, pardon my language, like, what the hell, what are you doing? Like, I know you're better than this. And it just, I think that seeing that for so long and watching him go through that kind of turned that up in myself too, of like, okay, I can only sit by and watch so long, him doing his own work and not giving our relationship the work. We kind of talk about sometimes like the relationship is like the third entity. There's him, there's me, and then there's a relationship. And if you look at it like a third person, like if you're not giving that person the attention that they need and the time and the care, then it starts to dissipate. And I think that was kind of what happened for me, is that I was spending so much time alone, being in my masculine for a lot of the time because I was holding space for all these kids, and wanting from him and wanting his presence, like physically, but also like his emotional and energetic presence. And I feel like because we didn't set time aside for ourselves, uh, even the time we had together wasn't as deep as I wanted it to be.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's kind of what we ended up with. Like, look, this isn't cutting. Like,
Yeah.
And we had the base of like that passionate beginning and like the really deep love for each other, even though a lot of our daily interactions happened to be shallow at that time. It was like, I love you so much, I can't let you keep doing this. It's like, for me, for you, for our family, like something has to change.
Well, and I often see, and myself included, that when, as a mother, if the father is absent because they are working so much, we have to step into that masculine energy to take care of all the things and create the structure. And so I'd love to kind of fill in our listeners to what do we mean by the divine masculine and the divine feminine. I know, in the spiritual community, we had a lot of, it was a big hot word for a while, this divine feminine, like that was like all of early 2010s, right? Like that's all we heard about was the divine feminine, honoring the divine feminine, all this sacred femininity work. And then trickled in like, no, there's the divine masculine too. And it happened in a wave. And so I just want to, set what we mean when we speak about these two things and how honoring both is so important. There's not one better than the other, but we need to recognize and honor and love on each of these aspects within ourselves and within a relationship. So I'd love to hear you guys' opinions and your takeaways and your thoughts on what does this mean for the divine masculine and divine feminine.
Sure. I could share a bit. For me, the divine aspect of both is the deepest expression, right? And everybody has masculine and feminine energy. And ideally, we're all working toward the capacity to fully embody, honor, and embrace both of those within ourselves, which creates space for us to embrace and honor that outside of ourselves, right? And so the work really does start within. And as we, in a sacred relationship, moments where we're really fully embodying our masculine or our feminine, often in a polarized moment, it can occur as God, it can feel like God union, like connecting with the source.
Mhm.
And I remember, early days for us, when we started changing the way we had sex, changing the way we experienced sex. I mean, that was like, wow, this is like, we're doing something totally different now. This becomes part of the spiritual practice. It's no longer, really, everything changes.
Mhm.
Everything changes when you start to bring in sexual energy into anything, but when you do it in a way that is intending to honor the divine within your partner and within yourself, it comes out into life. And we talk about anchor points, right? We talk about anchor points as like anytime you have an expansive moment where your consciousness expands, your body expands, you don't go back to normal. It stretches your consciousness, right? And in a sacred relationship, when we embody those aspects of ourselves, like Julianne was saying earlier, like it's painful for her when knowing what I can embody when I don't.
Yeah.
And that is the way we hold each other, with the compassion and understanding that we won't always be able to show up in that way, and the yearning and the desire that we will, right? And so that's how that, the divine mirror from the masculine and feminine work in a polarized relationship. And do you want to add anything?
Yeah. To bring some of that into, like, especially for parents, like looking at what that might look like is, the structure is the masculine energy. That's like the divine masculine space of setting the schedule for the day and setting the meal plan for the day and like setting all of these different things into place so that the feminine can move through and feel held and not feel like they have to constantly make decisions and, you know, be able to relax into the space and hold the space with love rather than rigidity, which can, you know, when someone who's predominantly embodied with their feminine energy most of the time, having to hold that all the time can be really taxing. You know, I feel like that's why, especially mothers who like stay at home with their kids or single parents, you know, that's part of what that draining feeling is that you're holding this, not that it's unnatural, but you're holding this less than ideal energy all day, and you're not having the space to flow and relax and like, you know, let the love flow as much as maybe you would like because you're focused on all these other like, you know, more structured things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The really feeling into the masculine of like having those systems in place and having the calendar, like that all makes a lot of sense. And so many relationships, there's an imbalance in that. And what I'm always reminded of like, what did I grow up with in the 1990s and 1980s was TV shows where the feminine mother in those shows were always the dominant role. We don't have any kind of portrayal in our social media or in our, you know, culture that's really showing the healthy balance.
Totally. And, you know, I think likewise, the men in those shows are portrayed as stupid.
Exactly.
Dunces who can't get anything done. And I feel like, not that that's not by design, but I think that there are these like kind of cultural structures in place that are upholding that idea that I'm supposed to expect that my man can't be trusted. I'm supposed to expect that he can't hold, you know, the space. He can't take care of the kids. He can't do all of these things. And he's supposed to expect that I'm going to be nagging him all the time and telling him what to do and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's true that there's not really very many good examples or portrayals in a positive light of a woman who is soft and who can lean back and let her more masculine partner take the lead, you know. And I feel like I was that way for a long time. I was a single parent when we met, and I had to take care of all the things. And I feel like it took a while for him to kind of, I'm not going to say prove, but like prove that he was trustworthy enough, that he could sense me enough, that he was sensitive enough to my energy and to my needs and my wants, that I could let him pack the diaper bag without thinking that he was going to forget something, you know, or I could let him, you know, plan the day trip without me having to know every single detail. I still like to drive, but that's a different thing.
I think it's a really good point to bring up the, you know, the cultural norms. You know, if we look at just Hollywood, for example, there was just he was just catching some heat in the new Sean Connery from a clip that came out like in maybe the 70s, where he's talking about, you know, if a woman talks back, you give her a little slap, right? Hollywood kind of skipped right from that type of James Bond, like you slap a woman if she gets out of line, which is a very, what we would call a toxic masculine energy. It was the military father, the Red Foreman, right?
Yeah.
Of that 70s show. And it skipped right over to Homer Simpson, right? It went, or Tim the Toolman Taylor, or like there's one on every single show, movie, and there was no portrayal of a healthy embodiment and a polarized dynamic or anything. And kids aren't learning that in their homes, you know, because their parents are the fruit of the generation before them, right? So they maybe made some progress, but our generation's parents, their progress often looked like equality, right? Where it's like the men and the women can both do everything. The woman's not dependent in any way on a man, and the man should be able to also clean the house and do everything. And although that's great, and we do that, you know, we each can and do both of those. The piece that's missing is that understanding of what it what it feels like to give up what you want to receive in a relationship dynamic. Meaning, if I want to, if Julianne wants to experience being led or not having to do everything, well, she would have to give up, be willing to give that up. And in order for that to happen, I need to be navigating my reality, navigating life in a way where she sees that I'm able to do that in a way that feels good to her.
Man,
Go ahead.
I feel like the reason that that's so important is because it's like a perfect example of why it's important that both partners are working together towards a common goal, because I have to work on letting go a little bit so that he can do his thing, and he has to work on being the person who I want to follow, you know. And if only I'm working on letting go and he's not holding up his end by doing his own work, then that leaves me letting go into, you know, solidifying the story I have that he's not going to be able to lead me because he's not doing the work to do that. And vice versa, you know, if I'm not willing to let go of anything and he's, you know, trying really hard, you know, and I won't let go, then it's solidifying the story for him that, you know, well, she's just never going to let me lead. She's controlling, she's picky, she's, you know, all these things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dance. It really is a dance, because there's it's like a chicken or the egg scenario with like, well, does the masculine have to become more trustworthy first, or does the feminine have to relax, open, and surrender first? And I don't think it's an either or. I think it's an and
it's a simultaneous
thing.
And it's a simultaneous thing, and it's a give and take based on the person's capacity in that moment.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like this happens with all of the kids that we have. Anytime we have like a sickness going through the house, we usually get it at different times. And it's this dance of like, right now I need to lay in bed and I can do nothing else, and you're gonna have to watch the kids and do the dishes and cook the dinner. And then it swaps, and it's like, okay, now I see that you're starting to not feel so good, but I'm on the upswing. Now it's time for us to switch. You know, that's a really solid, like concrete example, but that happens just energetically of like, maybe you had a rough day, and it's going to take me super surrendering for you to be able to pick up the lead and go. Or, you know, the other way around, it's going to take him, you know, if, for example, I had a play group today where I host for my kids that we homeschool, and I spent 6 hours doing nothing but holding space for all of these children. So it takes, you know, a super masculine approach from him to help move me out of that, if the polarity is what we're going for in that moment.
Yes. Okay. So paint me the picture of the sacred relationship. What ideally does it look like? I know you've given a lot of examples, but just like we gave the examples of here's the Hollywood portrayal, what would be the portrayal of the ideal?
Sure. I think for us, what we like is we work with a framework that we've created, a time blocking framework. That's been a structure that, you know, primarily I would take the lead with that, and then I would create something based on all the feedback that I've gathered. And I would show it to Julianne, and we would kind of mentally walk through what our week would look like in this type of framework. And I ask her to feel into it. And she's able to feel into what that would be like. And then we give it a container. We would say, let's try this for a month, and then we'll follow up. And we have weekly, you know, meetings with each other where we talk about the relationship. And one of the things that comes up is,
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because this is such a prime example of like the masculine, like this is the masculine thing. It's such an analytical approach, because my answer is going to be totally different.
Well, we're gonna get to that for sure. And that is beautiful. It's really beautiful, because this is how my mind, and like, this is what's so comfortable to me, is like, oh, I'm seeing that this leading into this is creating this energy, right? Because part of my practice is feeling the energy and observing the energy of the bigger picture of what's happening, and orchestrating in a way that leads to the highest outcome, right? And so for us, we are constantly working with optimizing the flow of energy so that it naturally leads to the highest outcome. And what that looks like in a sacred relationship for us, we've chosen, for my primary focus is during the average day is doing work to earn money to pay for our expenses and the life that we want for ourselves. And while I'm doing that, primarily, Julianne is watching our children, homeschooling, and running a homeschool enrichment group. And so we're both in our masculine energy for that, like totally in our masculine energy. And it's different, right? The draw is different on both of us. We schedule in a lot of personal time throughout our week, which is really important in a sacred relationship, so that we can be full power in every moment, ideally, right? Ideally. And for me, that happens at the beginning of the day, often, my personal time, so that when I come into work mode, I'm able to really bring in exactly what's needed with work. And then at the end of the day, I have a practice to release the energy of the work day. For Julianne, I'll let you go into kind of your part of the scheduling and how that works for you.
Okay, so yeah, for me, most of my free time is at the end of my work day. My being with kids all day day, and it's a time where I can like relax and decompress a little bit and start working myself out of the space holder masculine energy piece of it. I don't have much else to say about the scheduling part, but are you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go lead in.
So for me,
Yeah, I'm like, feel into it. Let's hear the feelings now.
The ideal like vision of a sacred relationship is knowing your partner on a level like as well or better than they know themselves. So for me, that's like when he can sense that I need a break, and I'm working on expressing that. Like I'm expressing that without just saying it. I'm expressing that with my body. I'm expressing that in all these ways. But he can understand and read that and know what to do. Like, and that's part of the trust thing. When I feel like he knows me as well or better than I know myself, then I'm able to trust that, okay, well, I trust myself. So I could definitely trust him to like do the things, hold the space, plan the stuff, all these other things. And it's also being flexible, which is totally opposite of the rigidity. While that's important, there is also the importance of the feminine flow within that, and the ability, like just the other day, for example, the kids weren't sleeping for a few days in a row. We had like full moon, and they were just like, nobody was sleeping well. He was sleeping well. So I was up with them, and it was just like, it had been tiring. So in the morning, he was supposed to have his time and do the work. And I was like, I need more than that. Like, I need you to help balance this now. So we were flexible with our rigid schedule, and that led to really more love and peace and happiness and joy, really for everybody. Because, if I'm not at my best, the kids feel that, and vice versa. So when we can all work together to balance things, I think that's key.
Yeah, I think that's a great example and a great thing to bring up, is especially early on, as we were starting to do this work and, learning about masculine, feminine energy, it's easy for me to get really rigid about, okay, I'm trying to embody this masculine energy, hold the structure, integrity. I said I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do this. Like, and there's not space for feeling the moment. As I, continue to become more sensitive and be more aware of my own energy and the energy around me, and really understand more of the divine masculine aspect, which is less about the here's the structure, here's what we're doing, and more about the I'm aware of everything that's happening and everything that needs to happen. And from that place, it's easy and clear to see that the thing that is going to bring more joy and love and upliftment to this moment is to change the schedule, right? To break the rules, right? And I think we have, over time, we've gotten better and better. I've gotten better and better at that, because I think I was the one who definitely had more rigidity around that to begin with.
Yeah.
And over time, I got to see, when you see in your partner, like, for example, just a couple of days ago when we did this, we changed the schedule and we started You know, we started spending time together. We went on a family outing. We went to a park, and I was able to witness the opening in Julianne, and like the way it, what it evoked in her was inspiring to me. It inspired me to want to go deeper. And I think that's the beautiful thing that happens with polarity in a sacred relationship is you're able to, with your deep embodiment of one of those poles, evoke in your partner. And it creates this beautiful, like spiraling, upward spiraling trajectory of just magic in the relationship.
And I want to add one other thing too that I feel like is a key part of like the sacred relationship thing is honesty and openness, because I feel like on a lot of surface level relationships, and I feel like this was true for us before we really got into some of this work, was you hold back. You don't want your partner to feel like you're nagging them, or you don't want them to feel shame because you're not happy with something that they're doing, or you don't want them to feel bad. You don't want to push them down. And when you're in a sacred relationship, it leaves space for like healthy, honest communication where I can tell him when something he does really pisses me off, or, it really made me feel uncomfortable when you did that, or I felt bad when this happened. And it also leaves room, of course, for, lots of great conversation, like positive conversation too. But all of those things are what yield growth personally and within the relationship. So being able and willing to like drop the ego a little bit. And of course, this isn't true for all the time. I know that we definitely have instances of, especially of teenage pieces coming out like, no, that's not me. What are you talking about? But it's the continuing to work through that, and to, being able to recognize that, like, okay, that's not adult you that's talking to me right now. That's teenage you. And we'll step away until we're ready to like adult on adult conversation here.
Yeah.
But I feel like so many people let little things go, and the resentments that causes builds up. And that's where you have like, well, they're not speaking to me now. Like, we don't talk for 3 days, or whatever the thing is for that particular couple, or like the big argument blow up. And not that we don't get into tiffs once in a while, because we do, but they're much more mild and much healthier, especially because we express what's on our hearts frequently.
Yeah. So there's not a buildup of energy that's repressed. It's that moment, and something maybe pissing us off or creating a trigger or something for us, and we go into it and we work through it, and we, much more quickly, come to a calm place, and bring it to a resolution where everybody's heard and expressed.
So you've been doing this work for, it doesn't even take very long, really. You get to a place where you realize that your partner's not trying to hurt you by saying those things. It's not like a personal attack. And sometimes there's still inklings of feeling that way because of your own, internal judgment of what's happening. But, you get to a place where you realize that's not really the case. And it's like, oh, okay, now I can really hear you because I'm not putting my defenses up right away.
Yeah. This sounds beautiful. It sounds like there's a lot of balance, a lot of give and take. And you guys have found your flow in that dynamic of your relationship. It's really beautiful. So tell me a little bit about how you guys are supporting other couples and finding the same type of balance and the same bringing the relationships together to honor the sacredness of their relationship.
Yeah, our focus right now is really on supporting couples who are busy. Maybe they own a couple businesses, or maybe they are homeschooling their kids. Something we're both passionate about is supporting like maybe what some people would call like a new earth type of paradigm, where we're releasing a lot of the old constructs about the way life was. Like, oh, if you homeschool your kids, they'll be antisocial. Well, Julianne started a homeschool enrichment group, and now all these kids who homeschool have other kids to play with. And like, running our own businesses, creating the ultimate freedom in our own life to do what makes sense to us. And clearly that was going to be a thing for us from an early age. That our parents could have predicted that.
Yeah, we're both quite the rebel children.
And I think it's just important for us to offer support where we're most passionate. So it is to busy couples and parents. And one of the things we discovered, we worked with a few coaches. We've done a few different programs. We've done a lot of study. And there's a lot of content that's created by people who aren't in a relationship, or they don't have children. And it's valuable content, right? And we want to definitely honor those teachers. It's amazing content. And there's challenges for busy couples and parents to go into those types of programs. And sometimes it even creates more shame because, we went into some of those programs that were really asking a lot of us. And if we would have given everything that was being asked, it would have threw the rest of our life out of balance. And so, it was that, okay, I guess we can't have it all. And that's been the thing. That phrase is like, I remember so many times, in my life feeling like I just want to see how to do it. Like I want somebody to show us the way. There was no healthy couple in Hollywood. There was no, our parents, they weren't ready to do it. They weren't ready to embody those types of energies. And now we are ready to do that. And I think our generation is ready to do that. And through the work we've done and through experimenting and being analytical with like time blocking, but also really feeling and expressing and bringing those two things together, we've created some strategies and rituals and things that have the highest return with the least amount of input.
Yeah, and those things are like, that's as much as I joke as like the masculine way, like those are things that are like crucial to be able to give to both partners, right? Because when the masculine partner is feeling more in his feminine and you still need a structure held. Somebody has to hold that. So it's either the structure that we've created or it's the other person. And I feel like we are especially passionate for me about really helping parents, because this is a different way of relating. Like you said, it's not a thing that we've seen many examples of, like in the media or really probably in most people's like personal lives either. And it's the seed of the new earth, like family, right? It's like it shows your kids what's possible. It shows your kids that they can have the kind of relationship that they want, and here's how it works. And it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or any other thing on the spectrum. It's everybody has these energies within them, and it's how you can navigate those, that you can increase love, deepen your connection with each other, and really be an example to the children you're in the life, but also all the other people around. Like we both have friends from years past who are like, oh my god, you guys are so great, like this is so cool. I so resonate with all this, like people you never would have thought would be into it, but you never know who you're influencing. And the more people that can get into this work and that can learn how to consciously relate with one another, the better off I think the whole planet will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's how we literally, it doesn't take many generations to create a massive ripple effect throughout humanity. And specifically the ways in which we're doing that right now are private mentorship, so couples who really want to dive in deep. And our private mentorships looks like individual sessions and couples sessions, because it's really important to, when you go in on that path, that you're being supported individually and as a couple. And then the other way that we're really excited about, a little bit of a newer way for us, is the path of sacred relationship. And that's a 6-week group experience where we walk couples through really transformational practices and teachings, so that it's not all just, like reading a new book where you learn a lot of new things cognitively, but there's no embodiment of those things. This program is really intended to create a deep and lasting transformation that is experiential, so that you'll feel it in your body.
And it's a really beautiful foundation, because it's like, if you only did that, and if you only learned the things that we would teach you in those 6 weeks, you could spend your life working those things and you would be good. And it's a great foundation for people who find that that's really speaking to them and that they want to dive deeper into that. But like I said, even if that's it, like you're set.
Yeah, there's no limit to like, well, we tapped out the depth of these practices. Not at all. We haven't tapped them and tapped those out. I don't think you do while you're in a human body. There's space to go do.
Not even the analytical stuff. Like there's always, iterations of our schedule. There's always iterations of all these structures that we can keep optimizing and making better and making more solid so that we can relax.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that the end note is so that we can relax.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the beauty of the sacred relationship is when you're holding your own energy in your divine energy, then you're creating the space so that the stress is less, the worry and concern and the nitpicking pity parties, they can go away. They can.
The games, like there's no games.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is what you get. Yeah, I'm going to give it to you straight and I have no choice. And I don't.
Oh, I know. I love it. I love it.
And I think that the deeper you get into the practices and like really being in the sacred relationship, the more that's true. That like I can't hide when I'm feeling, unhappy about something. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it is. It's it's funny because there are moments where we'll get in like a small, like, I guess you could call it an argument, where she may be reflecting something to me that I'm not liking it, and it'll be 2 minutes later and I'll just be like, you know what I really love about you? Oh, I get to grow so much because I have been blessed with you as my wife, and honestly, like, something about me is that I am all about being here this lifetime to grow, to go to meet the initiations, to meet the opportunities, to not chew off the ones that are harder than I need, but to really get what's there for me, right? And I feel like we both orient to life in that way, and that's a necessary mindset, right, for a sacred relationship. And when you have that mindset, you start to see the gift instead of the burden.
And honestly, the more you do it, even those uncomfortable conversations, like it starts to feel really good. You're like, wow, I just said that thing that was really bothering me or that like I didn't like, and you did something and like we're working on that and we got through it, and God, that feels really good. Like I can feel the expansion. It's like our capacities are greater now because we're both working together, to not bullshit each other.
Yeah, I think those two words, when you were talking there, Christine, the two words that came up, and we talk about these a lot, are freedom and love as like the two ultimate pillars, right? Like amplifying love and freedom is just this authentic expression of your highest self, of your highest truth. And if we put those on as our North Star individually and in our relationship, it's going to go to beautiful places.
Yes. I love that. And I love that you guys are possibility portals of what a couple can look like. So thank you for showing up for yourselves and sharing it with the world, because I think that is huge. We don't, and just like you said before, we don't have very many possibilities out there to look at, to look forward to, because there's just it's just not available. And we need more of that. And so I know your beautiful children are going to go off and have beautiful relationships when they grow up. And we're going to have this huge conscious collective shift with the work that you're doing. So thank you for showing up in that way. And I would love to see your 6-week program coming up on November 3rd, totally full. How many spots do you have open for your couples?
I think we're going to do 10 more spots. So yeah, we have 10 more. And, we'll see what happens. What happens. One thing I want to add in is for anybody who's in your audience, Christine, who signs up, one extra bonus we want to offer to them is a special thing we're creating on energetic hygiene for the relationship using Qigong. It's been such a beautiful thing to deepen into our own individual energy practices and really being mindful of, okay, this thing is done now. Let's close that thing. This thing is starting now. Let's bless or embrace this thing that we're about to start. And really navigating in that way allows you to have a fuller capacity and still be okay energetically. So that when we do get to our time, we're both not run down from the day. We're both ready at that point. And that's something we've continued to optimize over time and get feedback from the moment, things like that. But for people who I've shared these practices with, it's been transformational. So we're excited to offer that as well.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing our Reiki Cafe community step forward, step into the yes for this opportunity, and also get that energetic hygiene, because that sounds divine, delicious, yummy, all of the things. Anything else you guys would like to add? Like, what's the best way to contact you? We'll have your information in the show notes, but is there anything else that you would like to let our listeners know?
Well, yeah, like you said, you'll have a link for the program that they can check out. And I would say for both of us, Instagram is our primary channel where we're really actually having some fun creating reels together. We just started doing that, and that's been a fun, practice and something we're really enjoying. Just sharing more of ourselves together rather than just individually, which we enjoy doing as well. But it's something. It's interesting because I think for a long time we've been aware and felt that like something, this isn't just a normal amazing relationship. There is something more, and we're excited to finally have more space to share that.
Yes,
So thank you for giving us some of that space right here.
absolutely. And what's your Instagram handle?
It's at Eric Allman and at Julianne Allman.
Julianne.com.
Julianne.Allman.
Perfect. It'll be in the show notes as well.
Great.
Thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing this with us. Like, I really love it. And I want you to be doing this for forevermore, because I think it's so beneficial for
Thank you.
couples. So
Thanks for
thank
having us.
you. Absolutely.